Hello again. Today we're going to see if we can make some improvements to the standard Crayford focuser that comes on a Skywatcher scope. Now this one might look a little bit different than yours because I've got the autofocuser motor fitted, but what you will have is you'll have this knob here, which is basically a focus lock. It actually locks your focuser in position. If you're imaging or something like that and you've achieved focus, it helps sometimes to just be able to lock it and you know that it's not going to slip out of focus. Now just underneath that you've also got a small hole with an Allen key bolt in there, like a grub screw, and that's for actually tensioning your focuser. If you find that your focuser is a little bit slack in its movement, you can tension it slightly there. Now the thing is with the Skywatcher Crayford, they're quite a good focuser, but they can be improved on a little. So what I'm going to do first, I'm just going to take the motor off and show you a little bit about how the focuser actually works. It works on a friction method, so we'll demonstrate that to you and then show you just how it can be improved a little bit, take some slop out of it and give you a little bit more control. So we're back in a moment. Okay, we've taken off the plate which was here. Obviously it looked black before because the focuser motor bracket was bolted over the top of it, but now if you take a look at this particular part, if we turn it over, you can see that your focuser knob actually just rotates here in a Teflon bush. Now when you tension your focuser up with, remember we pointed out the Allen screw before, that basically just pushes this bush in and out a little bit, putting a little more tension on it, and this bar then on your focuser rod, which obviously on yours you'll have another knob on the other end. I don't, because I have a motor fitted. That actually presses against this part of your focuser tube, which is a flat area, and it's all just done by friction. Now the thing is, if you look closely at this particular focuser tube, you'll see that there are two black lines going up and down on the edges. Now what that's showing us is that even though that bar is against this flat surface, it's actually only pressing on the two outside edges, because the engineering on this is a little bit poor, and that's actually a concave surface. So the friction that we're getting could be improved quite a lot if we can flatten this off, and that's where we're going to go today with it, and see if it improves on the control of the focuser and takes some of the slop out and everything. Now obviously another thing is that your focuser draw tube will be all silver. Mine isn't. It's actually painted black with blackboard paint on this end section, which would be the part that would protrude into the tube as you do full inward focus, with some strips left in it, because these are where the actual bearings press against the tube that holds it all in position. It runs on like two bearings and then the friction point here, so it's actually held in three places, your focuser draw tube. Like I say, it's two bearings and then your focuser rod that your knobs are connected to. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at how to just take that into a nice flat instead of being like that, and at the end of it we'll see if it actually does give us more control over the focuser and less slop and everything, just tighten things up a little bit. So we'll be back in a moment. Right, now I've got the focuser draw tube held into a vise here, which I know it looks like it should be on the Antiques Roadshow, but there we go. Now one thing you do need to be careful of here is that you want to be gripping it just ever so slightly. You don't want to distort it because it's a tube. It needs to remain, obviously it needs to keep its shape, so don't over tighten it. You just want to hold it, and that's it. You're not going to be putting it under a lot of tension or anything, or putting a lot of stress on it. And as you can see, the lines now are showing up a little bit better here. Now what tool we're going to use for this is, I'm going to try using an oil stone such as this one. They usually have one fine side and one rough side, and because this is cast aluminium, we're going to use the fine side and oil it up and just see if we can take that surface to a nice flat. I've also got the jaws in this vise are mild steel, which means that they won't, and the flat mild steel, which means they won't mark anything. So if you've got a vise that's got jaws in it that are serrated, you might want to put a piece of wood just in each side to hold that tube steady. So we'll come back in a minute and I'll have a go at taking this down and we'll see what the results are. Right, we're at a stage where we're almost there with it. As you can see, that surface now is starting to become flatter, and you know, we're still working at it with the oil stone. What you have to do as you're taking this down is you can feel, you know, make sure that you feel where your flat is. You know, if you rock your stone a little bit, you'll feel where you're actually aiming for, and it's just very nice and careful backwards and forwards motions, just trying to keep everything nice and smooth. And it will take quite a little bit of work, but as you can see, it's starting to flatten off nicely. We're getting a much better finish on there now, and we'll come back in a moment when I've finally finished it up. Right, I think we're about finished with that. Obviously it needs a good cleaning up now, and once the excess oil's just been wiped off with a cloth, then it wants a really good clean with something like isopropyl alcohol. If you remember, it works on a friction method, so you really don't want any oiliness there. You want as much grip as you can with your focuser. And there's just something of a close-up view, and you can tell now that the finish is a lot better than it was originally, and that is now lovely and flat. Once you're working at it with your oil stone, you'll feel it. You feel it start to smooth out, and you don't get the rocking as much, because you know when you started off you're on an uneven surface. And like I said, just take your time with it, and you know you'll get a good enough result. Obviously the proof will be in the pudding, so once I've got this cleaned up with some isopropyl, I'll start to put it all back together again and we'll see how it performs. Right, here we are now with the draw tube fitted back in again, and obviously with the newly flattened side on there, and what I have noticed straight away is it glides. You can feel a definite difference in that. Now at the moment this is a little bit too slack. It needs to be tensioned up a little bit, but there's absolutely no slop in that focuser tube at all, even though it's still too slack, which normally you would tension up a little bit using your tension screw to take out any little bit of slop. But that is lovely and free, nice and loose. It's actually almost gliding, and like I said, there's no slop in that whatsoever. So I'm thinking that, you know, that little exercise has been a complete success. It does actually feel better. It feels more positive, and it just feels lighter. Like I said, it's gliding, and I must say that's a little mod that I'm definitely happy with. I'm going to get it back together again now and tension it up, and that'll be everything done. So once again, thanks for watching.